Hi, you're listening to the Flow State Fishing Podcast.
What do you mean?
There's fucking two Sheilas in the boat.
Listen to me. Every time.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh, yeah. Oh.
All right, let's see if I can nail this in one take. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Hustle and Grind Coffee. High quality, single origin coffee by world-class growers, roasted to order. Subscribe and save with no lock-ins, fortnightly and monthly delivery options available straight to your door. The website will be live this Friday, which I'm super excited about. This Friday, 17th of July, and the address is www.flowstateproductions.com.au. Get at us on socials or email us at info@flowstateproductions.com.au. One take, motherfucker. Boom. Ryan, welcome, man.
Whoa.
Nervous?
And we're live. I am a bit.
You shouldn't be, man.
Oh, you're right, I shouldn't be because I talk shit for a living. So I talk shit and brew coffee for a living. Pretty much got the best job in the world.
It's an awesome job. We're here with Ryan Toleman, works for Freelance Roasters.
That's right. Freelance Roasting.
Roasting,
technically.
sorry.
Do you know what?
Soz.
Do you know what's really funny though?
What?
For the first 2 months that I was working here, I thought that I worked at Freelance Roasters. It's actually not Freelance Roasting.
Well, there you go.
I even wrote it up on the wall and everything like that.
Whoops.
Yeah,
it's like a big
don't even know where the
black
fuck I work.
decal on
right
the wall.
behind
It's
me.
right there.
Just read it.
Massively.
Just fucking read it. Can you read, Ryan? Clearly not. Nah.
So Ryan is a massive coffee enthusiast. He's actually
Coffee wanker, probably.
nerd. I'll give you nerd.
Fair enough.
You've got the caffeine. What's that called?
That is a caffeine molecule. Yeah.
Yeah, like the little DNA looking Jimmy.
Tattooed
on your wrist.
Tattooed on my wrist.
Yeah.
And do you know what? The story behind that is, in the coffee industry, it's kind of hard to separate yourself from, everybody is a fucking, and look, no disrespect to people out there that are self-confessed coffee experts or coffee aficionados, but almost nobody actually has any goddamn qualification when it comes to coffee.
Yeah.
They just started making it and then now they're qualified.
Yep.
So how do I separate myself, somebody who genuinely wants to be an expert in the field, how do I separate myself from other people in the industry that are self-confessed
Someone at the door, bro.
experts?
Got to brew my old coffee.
So one of the ways that I did that was went and got a fucking caffeine tattoo. It's a great way to get yourself a job. It's separated me from everybody else
Shows
that
you
was
legit.
trying to get work at that joint. So
Well, let's step it back. Where are you born and raised, man? What's your story?
Victoria, Australia.
Ew.
Yeah, I know.
You moved up here with the humans finally.
I did. God damn it. All my mates down there are freezing cold.
Yeah.
Poor bastards.
We're in t-shirts.
I know.
It's lovely.
Yeah. Victoria, grew up in an area called Tynong North, which is in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, where everybody's related to each other's sister. We moved out there and we moved to the Mornington Peninsula, which was kind of like this up-and-coming area for Melbourne.
Yep.
So it's south of Melbourne, it's about an hour's away, and it was kind of this little pocket of wealthy people that had beach houses outside Melbourne.
Yep.
So there was kind of this upper middle class where coffee shops and things like that were really starting to sort of proliferate.
Yep.
Melbourne, at least when I first got into the industry, was starting to become the capital of coffee in the world. Now it's well understood that Melbourne's the best place in the world to drink coffee. But when I first got in...
In the world?
Yeah.
We're talking world, not nation.
Worldwide, not nation, worldwide. People in the coffee industry come to Melbourne to learn how to make coffee.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
That is insane.
So when I was first sort of coming up in the industry, I was really lucky. I was only an hour away, and Melbourne was blowing up in terms of we were seeing, some of the best coffee shops, coffee companies in the world were launching.
Yep.
And we were, me and my, the other guys that I came up through the industry with, we were an hour away, in an area that we could copy what was kind of happening in Melbourne. We saw cafes that were working, we saw roasteries that were taking off, and we were basically able to carbon copy that and do it on the peninsula. So I spent...
As in we being your family or what?
Me and just other hospitality guys that I worked with, one of them being, the most notable being, my mate and eventually my boss for like 10 years, a chap named Sam Keck. People in the coffee industry will know of him. He's pretty well known, well regarded. We worked together for 10 years in the coffee industry down on the peninsula, trying to work out what the hell we were going to do with this stuff. Like, where do we take it?
So what got you into that? I guess, did you know you wanted to do coffee?
Well, actually,
or did you want to just get into hospitality?
Originally, I mean, everybody does their hospitality stint, or almost everybody does a cafe bar, restaurant,
retail type thing. Yep.
And I was right in the middle of trying to work out whether I was going to go into film and television or go into theatre production. Specifically in like lighting. That was actually what I was going to go off and study, and instead I decided to do a gap year. I was working in this restaurant, and one of my managers was like, right, time for you to learn how to use this espresso machine. This is cappuccino, this is a flat white, tamp this hard, grind size, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. I would have been like 15 at the time. I've never drunk coffee before. It seems that all of these drinks have an espresso in them. So you're telling me that if the espresso's no good, then all of the drinks are going to taste like shit. So my first experience in coffee was what we call a cupping, where you set a baseline, right?
Yeah, well, we done one.
Yeah, we did.
For the flow state roast.
Exactly. You need a baseline, you need a datum to measure from. So I said to the manager at the time, can you make me a really crap tasting espresso, and can you make me one correctly? And I'll taste the difference. That was like my first experience in coffee. And in the industry, that is basically the only way to know if what you're doing is any good. My job as a roaster is I will roast a batch. Taste it. Make one tiny little adjustment. Go back and taste it. You always got to have a baseline to sort of measure everything off.
But adjustment. No, we'll get to that. Keep going.
Yeah, we'll get to roasting.
Oh man, this is going to be fucking...
Yeah, it's going to get deep. We're getting deep into the human psyche,
the philosophy
and the way that we perceive flavour. Anyway, so that was my early days. I thought, fuck, this is really interesting. The more I learned about coffee and where it comes from and all of the moving parts that go into making a decent cup of coffee, I found it really interesting. So I kind of got stuck into it, trying to learn as much as I could. It would have been 2012, I went off and passed my Q grader's license, which is like probably the only qualification you can hold in the coffee industry that holds any clout. It's a bit like a sommelier. There's a license. At the time when I got my license, there was about 2,000 people in the world that held a license. Okay, let's go back. How do we know if coffee's any good? Well, with timber, or better question to ask is, how do we know what coffee's worth? Well, if we're talking about timber or steel, it's pretty obvious. I'll take this piece of timber and we can bend it and we can compress it and we can crush it and we can work out what its strength is. Based on that, we know how much it's worth. Same thing with steel, same thing with anything else. How do we know what coffee's worth? Well, you got to taste it. Okay, well, how do we know that the person who's tasting it understands how taste works? Because it's very subjective. When you go into this. It's very subjective, the way that you taste things. So you have to be licensed to grade the quality of coffee. So at the time when I got my license, there was 2,000 people in the world licensed to use their palate.
That's not a lot of people. Not
a lot, no. To grade the quality of coffee and help the market understand what it's worth. That's the qualification that I have. And that was back in 2012. And I've just spent the better part of over a decade now, which is crazy to think, drinking coffee, learning where it comes from, spending time in Africa, setting up a coffee plantation. I helped launch a coffee roasting company in Melbourne, and now I'm up here in Townsville doing basically the same thing. I work for this really rad, tiny little coffee company. We're sitting in it right now. It's a single room that is smaller than my lounge room.
Yep.
And I hope that from this tiny little epicenter, we can really sort of like push the envelope for coffee in North Queensland.
I think you already are. Like, I haven't tasted better yet, and I haven't tasted.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, it's good, man. I've sussed out a fair few different. Like,
Well, I know that you don't sleep, so I figure there's a pretty good chance that you investigated
Live
every
on-
coffee roasting company within a couple of 100 kilometres a year.
Yeah, basically.
That's really cool to hear.
I was stoked to even find one. I was like, Googled coffee roasters, and then there's obviously a bazillion came up Australia-wide, and then I was like, I wonder if there is any at home. So I went Coffee Roasters Townsville. The first one on the bar was you guys.
Crazy.
Because there's a couple of others here, isn't there?
There are a few.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'll suss these guys out. I sussed the other two, and then got a really good vibe from here. And the level of, like, personalism, I guess, like, and investment. Like, you're invested in, like, you're not just mass producing.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
For
and
sure.
it's, love in the bag, man. Like, every roast.
Love in the bag. God damn.
But back on flavour, because you mentioned cupping, and just explain to the people what that is.
Okay, so to different people, it means different things.
I've had both.
Cough 3 times. So, when we're tasting coffee, what we need to do is we need to isolate all of the different sort of flavour characteristics.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we can do is, okay, so let's explain the process of developing your coffee.
Yep.
What we do is I roast the coffee a certain way.
Yep.
And then we make an adjustment to it,
Yep.
be it the temperature that the coffee gets to or how long it stays inside the roaster for.
Yep.
And we see what difference that has on the coffee. It's fairly simple, right? Mm-hmm. And from those 2 cups of coffee, the 2 bowls we call them, from those 2 bowls we go, okay, was the first lot better or the second lot better? What do we like about either of them? Which direction should we head? Okay, well, the second one is definitely heading in the direction that we like. The flavours are maybe more bolder, or they are softer, or they are more balanced, or
How
whatever.
do you taste it?
So they're like really big coffee mugs, basically.
Yeah.
And
Because there's worldwide, isn't there? That it's the same amount of coffee and the same amount of water brewed the same
I should have
way.
explained that.
You definitely should.
So on a table,
What is a cupping? Yeah.
we have these coffee bowls. They all have the same volume.
Yep.
We can fit the same amount of water in them, and we add exactly the same amount of coffee. It's 12 grams in every single cup.
And that's a standard worldwide, isn't it?
That's a standard worldwide.
Yeah.
So on a table, we might have 30 different bowls, each of them with slight variants
Yep.
in them. There's a bit of sort of like mucking around in terms of like cleaning the coffee off of the top, because there's no filter. We don't filter the coffee out. All of the fragments just sort of fall to the
because
bottom.
that foam shit is really acidic, isn't it?
Well, it's just kind of really bitter and gross.
Yeah.
You don't want to drink it because it's chunky.
Shit. Yeah.
So we don't filter it. There are no percolators or anything like that. It's just a bowl, ground coffee, hot water goes in. After 4 minutes, there is a crusty kind of foam that forms on top.
Yep.
We scrape that foam off, and then what's left underneath is just a bowl of hot coffee.
Yep.
And at the very bottom are coffee granules.
Yep.
And so we just start tasting that.
With a spoon.
With a spoon. You just
Yep.
like slurp it like soup.
Yeah. Really
it's
quickly for some
gross.
reason. What's it really quickly for?
The idea is that when you slurp your coffee, I kind of want to do it right into the microphone because you've got headphones on. You slurp it, the idea is to atomize the coffee and sort of spread it across your whole palate so that you're hitting everything at the same time. I don't really know if it makes that much of a difference, but it's kind of what we do.
It sounds fancy.
It sounds fancy. I mean, you could probably just drink it.
You probably could.
Not like an idiot.
Yeah.
So we slurp it like hot soup, and pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's
But you like, I was trying to explain this to someone yesterday, is like...
there's a formula.
And your flavours are based on feel. Sort of.
Sort
Like.
Sort of. So when
Yeah.
you're first learning how to taste coffee, textures are really useful to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to get you to say, oh, I think this tastes like mandarin, not orange.
Yeah.
Well, nobody's going to really be able to pick that up on their first day. But to say, this one tastes rounder than this one, you know, textures are a really useful way to think about taste.
Yeah.
In your early days, and then you can get into, this is malic acidity and this is phosphoric acidity and all those sort of things.
Big words, man.
Yeah, you can get into that stuff later.
Yep.
But it's coming back and trying to understand the way that we taste.
Yeah.
'Cause taste is goddamn fascinating.
Yeah. Is that why you got into coffee? Why did you get into coffee?
I think that's why I kept being interested in it, because it's...
So you started your hospitality and then you just went,
Started
coffee's
brewing
cool, and then you just got addicted to it.
Yeah,
super
one
passionate
day
about
I
it.
was being told how to use the espresso machine, and like I said, look, these tiny adjustments in the way that we brew coffee made it go from being undrinkable to being delicious.
Yeah.
From really average and not something that I would ever want to drink ever again to being something that's really exciting.
Yep.
And I read... Do you know Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Don't think so.
Okay, awesome book. I really recommend it. And somewhere in there, in one of his books, I can't remember which one it was. Maybe it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. He says, "Find what's the quote?
I'll look it up while you're trying to think of it.
Try to how can I do what I do for more people for a better price?
Say that again.
How can I do what I do for more people for a better price?"
Yeah, right. That's cool.
That's one of those things, one of those moments, and there's a few of them that I've had through my life listening to an audiobook. This is not an ad for Audible. I've been listening to audiobooks, and these quotes have just sort of been throwaway lines, and they've been like mind-blowing. How can I do what I do for more people for a better price?
Yep.
And I remember standing at the espresso machine in this cafe that me and eventually, you know, the boss that I would end up working for the next 10 years, were both standing there working away. And I remember looking down the docket line, and there was just like hundreds of people. We had a line out the door, and I was getting absolutely smashed between the two of us. We couldn't make coffee fast enough. And I remember thinking, that's the cap. That's the roof for me as a barista. I can't make more coffee for more people. That's it.
Yep.
So how the fuck can I make more coffee for more people for a better price? And that is when I went, I need to become a roaster.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Right? So every bag of coffee, every kilo of coffee is like approximately 100 cups of coffee.
Yep.
And I can roast on this little roaster 5 kilos at a time. I can make 500 cups of coffee, approximately. Better to say I can be involved in, I can impact 500 cups of coffee every 15 minutes.
Well, you source your beans too. Like you go from, the only thing you don't do is dry the fucking beans out.
We don't grow them. We work with the growers. Yeah. But we don't do that.
Yeah.
We receive samples from people. Yeah. And we decide whether or not we like what they're working on and the way that they do it. And
explain, while we're on that topic, okay. Coffee starts as a coffee tree. How does it get to in your cup?
Oh, fuck, man. How
Off we go. Off we go.
Okay.
I'm just going to get in that beer while you're...
Your poor listeners. Why are you subjecting
I've only got 7 of them. And I'm one, so there's only 6, really.
So coffee is a fruit. A lot of us probably don't realise that. It's a little red cherry. Inside each cherry lives 2 seeds. And they face each other. That's why one side of a coffee bean is flat, because they face each other inside the coffee cherry. Now, there is a whole stack of processing. So obviously me as a roaster, I can't roast fruit. It doesn't work like that. So there's a whole bunch of processes that go into removing that fruit and getting that coffee down to a dry state so that I can roast it. So the coffee fruit is harvested. A coffee farmer, when we talk about the farmer, when we talk about the farmer typically is in control of two parts of the process. They look after the health of the trees, which means fertilizing and all that sort of thing, and they look after the way that the coffee is harvested. Coffee needs to be selectively harvested. The fruit ripens at different stages.
Depending on?
Oh, just depending on the weather of the
100
day.
things. Yeah, okay.
A bajillion things, like how much sun that tree gets, how much sun the branch gets, and what makes that coffee ripen faster. So coffee needs to be selectively harvested. You literally go down to the tree and you pick only the ripe cherries off. It is unbelievably labor-intensive work to harvest coffee. I've done it once. I've spent one single day in my life harvesting coffee, and that was enough because it fucking sucked. It's on like a steep slope that you can barely stand on. You need to harvest, like 50 kilos at a time to make it worth walking up to the trees.
Yeah.
It's hard ass work. So farmers, goddamn, those guys are fucking legit. From there, it gets sold usually to a mill. And the mill's job is to remove all the fruit.
Yeah, okay.
So the farmer will typically sell the coffee cherries to the mill, and then the mill will own those coffee cherries, which they will go through the process of removing the fruit and then fermenting it. So coffee, that's right, yeah, a lot of us don't really know that our coffee fermented just like an ancient sort of style of wine.
Yeah,
like a natural fermentation.
And there's a few different ways to do that too.
There is a bajillion different ways to do that.
What's the top three?
Look, there are three main methods for drying coffee.
Yep.
So the coffee goes through a machine that pulls all the skin off.
Yeah.
And then you put it into a bath with some water, and then you let it sit.
What is that?
I don't know.
Someone's going ham.
Somebody's in the roof doing the air cons, maybe?
That's probably what's happening. Yeah.
The coffee skins are removed.
Goes into a bath.
And it goes into a bath where it starts to ferment.
Mm-hmm.
This is called the washed method. Excuse me. The washed method. This will give you really clean flavours, but you'll lack a little bit of body.
Yep.
Alternatively, you can dry the coffee cherries like a sultana, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, right.
You dry them out on a concrete bed, and they will lose some of their clarity.
Yep.
But they will be much more intense in flavour.
Yep.
So that's called the natural method.
Yep.
From there, once the coffee has gone through the mill, it is passed on to an exporter. An exporter will manage the process of getting the coffee out of the country. The exporter knows importers. So they'll go, I know that this coffee from, let's say, Uganda will work really, really well with some importers I work with in Melbourne.
Yep.
And the guys in Melbourne will go, I've got a bunch of roasters that I know that I can sell this to. So there's a whole global trade for coffee. Now, one of the most thrown around facts about coffee, which isn't, I don't think, technically true, is that coffee is the most traded commodity on earth outside of oil. I'm pretty sure that's not true, but fuck it, sounds cool.
It's believable. It's borderline believable.
It's believable.
We'll finish off the other two methods and then go into how coffee sort of doesn't, the economy doesn't affect it that badly.
So the three main methods, so there's the washed method.
Which what you just explained.
Then there's the natural method where the coffees are dried out like a sultana.
Yep.
And then you have a version of kind of a bit of A and a bit of B.
Yeah, okay.
Where the coffee fruit is taken off and it's still sticky. The seeds are still sticky like something fucking sticky. I don't know.
I feel like I licked the lolly and put it on the table.
And those are dried out in the sun too. This is called the pulp natural method. So that kind of can be really good, but it can be, sometimes it's called the honey process method. So it can give you really bold flavours, but it can also taste really rubbish.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
So washed coffees. If you ever hear of a coffee being washed, it means it was fermented in water. And the skins were removed and all of the sugar was taken away, basically limiting the amount of fermentation that comes in contact with the coffee seed.
Yep.
Then that coffee is dried out in the sun. That will give you the sort of like cleanest, most crisp, fresh acidity at the cost of somebody.
Yep.
It won't feel as big in your mouth. So for coffee snobs, the washed method is probably like the premier way to drink coffee. Like I know there are coffee companies out there that exclusively deal in washed coffee.
Yep.
That's all well and good, but a stack of us out there like our coffee to have some serious weight to it as well.
Yep.
That's where the natural method comes in.
Okay.
Whenever we talk about coffee from Italy, almost all of it has been processed naturally. From Brazil, almost exclusively. When you're tasting an Italian roast or an Italian style, it's a coffee from Brazil and it has been processed using the natural method.
Yep.
And that is because in Italy, there was legislation that said that you could only charge €1 for an espresso.
Okay.
So the only way that cafe owners were ever able to make any money was to buy basically the lowest grade coffee available on the market.
Yeah, okay.
So the Italian flavour is actually, in the coffee industry, sort of a little bit of a defect.
Yeah, right.
Like, these are all of the coffee beans left over after production is finished.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah. So I don't want to name any coffee roasting brands, but yeah. That's kind of what's happening.
And
the natural method is easy to do. You pick the coffee cherries and you lay them out on a big slab of cement and you let them dry in the sun. That's it.
Yep. And there's a guy that like turns them by hand, doesn't it?
I mean, you don't have to have that.
No, but
if you want to make a really high quality, clean, natural processed coffee,
yep,
you need somebody that walks past and rakes it and turns that thin carpet of coffee cherries, turns them constantly. If you don't do that, then they are going to go moldy and you're going to get these real off-putting flavours. Now, when I was in Kenya, I got a chance to go to the Kenyan Coffee Exchange. At the Kenyan Coffee Exchange, it is the auction house for all of the coffee coming out of Kenya. Yep. And so on any given day, you can go in and you can see maybe 100 samples of various size producers around the area.
Yeah.
And there are coffees on that, this room is crazy. It's just like this massive long corridor of 1 million little samples of coffee from 1 million little farms. And some of them are incredible. They smell like blueberries. And then some of them smell like actual chicken poo. So it's this crazy, bizarre, like when we think about the coffee industry, that is the kind of the breadth of what you're dealing with. Coffee that is so fucking disgusting that you would pay good money to never drink it. And then there's coffee that is some of the best in the world sitting right next to it.
Yep.
And that's what exporters do. They go through and they work out where they're going to place that.
Yeah, right.
Pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah.
Probably one of 2,000 people in the world that think that's interesting.
There's people that do. There's a fair few of people that, like, I know that will absolutely froth this podcast.
Hope so.
Yeah, proper coffee snobs. Yeah, you're running behind on that.
Whoa, I am behind. There we go.
Yeah. So, where did I want to go with that? Oh, I know what it was. It was Brazilian coffee originating from Brazil. From Ethiopia, I mean. Is it Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Or Africa in general?
Yeah,
explain that.
Coffee is supposed to be native, originally from Ethiopia. There's some contention about exactly where in Ethiopia, and some people think it's from Yemen too. But the consensus is mostly from a region called Yirgacheffe in Ethiopia. And this is where coffee comes from. So when you're drinking coffee, you may see Yirgacheffe on coffee bags. What the fuck does that mean? Well, it's a region from Ethiopia. And if you can imagine, coffee evolved here in this region.
Yep.
So when you go to a coffee plantation or a coffee growing area like this, the coffee trees look different. And that's because there's this genetic diversity in that area. There are tall trees and short trees and fat ones and skinny ones. There are ones that are really bushy and ones that just look really fucking sickly. we call all... So if you went to Brazil, you could see almost the exact opposite, almost a monoculture. Now, for instance, there are plantations that I deal with and have been working with for a really long time. One of the varietals they use is called Mondo Novo. Now, in Ethiopia, we have a varietal called Heirloom Ethiopian, which basically means we don't know what the fuck is in here because we haven't had a chance to categorize it all yet. There are a stack of varietals. Like when we think about why the fuck does coffee taste like this, a lot of people think that it is to do with where it's grown. And I think it probably has more to do with the tree's varietal. How does this tree, this specific species of tree, just like with fish, how does this specific tree put different chemical compounds into its seeds?
Yeah. Well, it'd have to do with the soil it's in and all that sort of stuff, or not really?
Well, like the soil, like what's available, sure. But,
yeah, I suppose.
But probably more to do with, well, why does this tree pick up boron more than other trees, as an example?
Yep.
Why does this tree thrive better in acidic environments as opposed to this varietal?
Yep.
I've been thinking about sort of like parallels to draw between coffee and fish, and there is a fuckload, I think, actually. Like, different fish like completely different environments. The same thing goes for different species of coffee tree.
Yeah,
So coffee in Brazil originated from Ethiopia. So when you're having coffee from Ethiopia, you are getting this biodiversity of genetic material that is just so fucking interesting. That's part of the reason why it tastes so crazy.
So Ethiopia is like one species of tree? Well, historically, no.
No, so Ethiopia is obviously the country, the species of tree. Okay, so we have Coffea is the umbrella that includes all coffee species.
Right.
Coffea. And then underneath that we have Arabica, which everybody knows.
Oh, right.
And then we have Robusta, which a lot of people have heard of.
Yes.
And a little known varietal called Liberica. Within Arabica, we have a fuckload of varietals. We have Typica, we have Caturra, Catawai, Mondo Novo, Bourbon, and then Bourbon can be 3 different varietals. There's red, yellow, and orange Bourbons. We have Geisha, we have... I can't even think of any more off the top of my head. There are stacks of different varietals. And then there's a whole bunch of varietals where... Okay, so Arabica is the better tasting of the two the two sort of subspecies.
Yeah,
Arabica and Robusta.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So you're saying Coffea is like...
All coffee?
So like it's the family?
Yeah.
And then you've got your genus is your Arabica, Robusta, and then you've got species under that.
I think, I could be wrong, I think technically, and you might know better than I do, technically, Coffea is the genus, then Arabica and Robusta are the species, and then varietals, I could be completely
like subspecies or something. It's not
I'm not really sure how to categorize it, but I understand that that's how they sort of...
Yeah, okay.
So within Arabica varietals, there are sort of cross-pollinations with Robusta. Okay, so Arabica is the...
Fucking rabbit hole, this shit, tell you.
Arabica is the better tasting varietal. Okay?
Yeah.
It's cleaner, it's sweeter, it is more complex, it's not as bitter, it's just overall better tasting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of hard to grow. Robusta, on the other hand, grows like a fucking weed. It grows anywhere. It's very drought tolerant, it's disease resistant, it rocks.
Yeah, okay.
But it tastes like shit. So Robusta, and this is the thing, Robusta is often used as a filler to sort of cut your coffee blend. Robusta is a lot cheaper because it doesn't take as much effort to grow it.
So you're mixing beans from different varietals to make your blend.
Yeah.
And you cut in Robusta to make your, at the end of the day, your bag of coffee cheaper to buy.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So Arabica is typically grown at a pretty high elevation. We're look, any coffee that is pretty decent tasting is probably above 1,200 meters above sea level.
Okay.
So that doesn't give a lot of space on Earth to grow it, because it's all up a fucking mountain, and you can't we have a limited amount of mountain space that you can grow coffee on.
Yep.
So, and that's one of the things that's kind of scary about like global warming and shit like that. As temperatures sort of rise, we get less and less space to grow coffee on. That's going to make it taste great. So Robusta is typically grown at lower elevations.
Yep.
And potentially why it tastes so gross. Now, I've done a little bit of research into trying to find, okay, what happens if you go grow Robusta in the same conditions that you grow Arabica? Can it taste good? No,
Yeah, right.
it basically doesn't. Like, wouldn't that be great? If you had
That'd be amazing.
a disease-resistant, drought-tolerant tree that produced something that tasted amazing. And it's not that simple. You kind of have to splice the rootstock of a Robusta tree with, you've got to graft it with an Arabica tree as well. But there's a whole bunch of varietals where the people that breed coffee trees, what the fuck they're called. I should know that. There is a whole bunch of species or varietals that are a cross between Robusta and Liberica and Arabica.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of them. The idea being to try to make this super good tasting coffee with a super disease resistant, drought tolerant tree.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what Robusta means when you see it on a bottle of like.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I remember. I acknowledged seeing those names, but never questioned what the fuck they were. That's pretty interesting.
Robusta tastes like a burning tire.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter how you roast it, it sucks. It sucks. I wish that it was good because it's cheap. I wish that it tasted great. That'd make my job fucking a lot easier. So it's not.
Why does Brazil have so many varietals?
Why does Ethiopia have so many varietals?
Oh, well, didn't... yes. I mean, I remember you telling me that you can have a Brazilian coffee and then you can have another Brazilian coffee and they're completely different because... Varietal. But so originated from Brazil, originated from Ethiopia. Sorry, I keep saying Brazil. How did coffee get to Brazil? So obviously, was there like the Spanish brought it over?
Totally.
And
exactly that.
Just Spanish, or was there like other influences?
Well, I mean, nowadays there's a whole, like, if you think back, okay, so coffee roasters used to be, like, before World War I probably, there used to be a coffee roaster in every town, just like there was a greengrocer and a butcher. That was a thing before we sort of industrialised the way that we make food. And we have companies like Nestle now that process coffee on these crazy scale.
Yep.
So, yeah, probably originally the Spanish brought over a bunch of varietals that they didn't ever bother.
Is there species of coffee in Brazil that are unique to Brazil? After over time, it's just like there's cross pollination between trees and shit.
Yeah, I don't actually know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I suspect.
You'd assume
so Brazil is the largest producer of coffee in the world. They produce metric fuckload. Like they produce more coffee than the next largest producer by like a factor of 2.5.
Jesus.
They produce so much fucking coffee. It's amazing.
Yeah, wow.
There was actually legislation that limited the amount of coffee that Brazil was allowed to release onto the market, because if Brazil had a bumper crop and they released all of their stock onto the market, that would basically drop everybody in the world that grew coffee immediately into poverty. Like,
really?
Holy fuck. Like, can you imagine? Like,
that's a lot of fun.
You're a little grower in Guatemala and it's like, oh, Brazil's had a great year. You're like, well, I'm fucked.
Yeah,
now
right.
the price falls through the floor.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you know how much coffee either is consumed by the consumer or is produced in a year or anything? Like,
I don't actually know.
Is there stats for that?
That's definitely...
It'll be fucking
Pull
tons.
that up, Jamie.
I'm on it. Jamie's on it. Right, so we've gone to that. Now, let's talk about roasting the coffee. So you've got the green beans in a bag in your What do you call it? Roastery. It's a roastery.
Yeah. It's like a brewery, but a roastery.
So you got your bag of coffee beans, you put them in your roaster.
Yeah.
What determines, so obviously how you roast the coffee has a massive influence on what it tastes like.
This is intellectual property.
Yeah.
We're straight. No, I'll fucking talk about it.
No, you don't have to go into too much detail, but just outline what, without fucking yourself.
Nah, it's not rocket science. Like, it's not, like, turning coffee from green to brown is not super hard to do. There's a few rules that you kind of got to follow. But basically, there's a few things. There's two main things that you need to pay attention to. One is how hot the coffee beans get. How much coffee?
Yeah.
I just saw your eye. Your eyes just like.
Fuck. I just got single stats from countries here, right?
Okay.
Oh, it's fucking Wikipedia. It could be completely wrong.
It's probably wrong.
It's probably definitely wrong. I'm not going to read that. No, I'll just read the top three based on Wikipedia, which is,
Brazil.
fucked up. Brazil. 2,652 metric tons of coffee beans a year.
So just stop for 2 seconds and consider that it takes one cherry to make 2 seeds. Right?
That's a fucking lot of coffee.
That is so much work.
2 million tons, like, wow. And then Vietnam,
Yeah.
1.65 million.
A lot of Robusta in Vietnam.
Righto.
So if you think like your Nescafe
Colombia,
Gold,
which is only 810,000 tons. I thought that'd
still
have
a lot.
heaps. Yeah, it's still a lot of
Still
coffee.
a
But I mean,
lot of
like,
coffee.
I feel like that is
I don't know
like,
if I'd want to pick all that.
definitely.
Like, so, like when you look at instant coffee is what it is. I'm not going to slag any instant. The fact that instant coffee can be so consistent in its flavor,
It's a whole different drink.
freaks me the fuck out.
Tastes like
it's kind of
arse.
amazing, right?
Yeah,
it's
but
kind of
it's-
amazing. Yeah, but it's consistently tastes like
Like
arse.
shit,
Like it never changes.
What,
How
Hilo?
does that happen when we have this product that changes year out? How the fuck do they do that?
Yeah.
So a lot of the coffee that goes into things like Nescafe and whatnot is Robusta. The
Yeah,
process of making instant coffee is bloody fascinating too.
Fucking hate instant coffee.
Kind of interesting though.
Nah. It is.
I reckon instant coffee always reminds
It's
me
freeze
of
dried,
corn.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's freeze dried, but if you freeze dry coffee, it would literally be a powder that looks like bicarb.
Well, how's it dissolvable? Do you know this stuff?
I know a little bit about this, but when you ask a question like that, it makes me feel like you know a lot about it.
I don't know a lot about
Okay.
it. I'm full of loaded questions, but I know fuck all about coffee.
Well, now I can talk shit knowing that you don't know anything about it. You can go, oh, fuck, sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. So, instant coffee, if you freeze, my fiance's family own a freeze drying facility. And as one of the things that they did one day was they literally stuck a cup of coffee in one of their giant industrial freeze dryers. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, a cup of coffee is like 99% water. So if you suck all the water out, what the fuck's left? Well, basically, a very thin coating of powder inside the cup when they open their industrial freeze dryer back up again. This tiny, like, brown film inside the coffee cup, and that was it.
Is coffee, like instant coffee, brewed before?
Yeah.
So it's pre-brewed?
So instant coffee's brewed and then it's sprayed into a vacuum chamber, which sucks all of the moisture out of it, and then so it's a giant vertical, this is one of the ways to do it, giant vertical fucking tower that's under a vacuum. It's got no air in it.
Yeah.
And they spray coffee into it.
Liquid brewed coffee.
They spray the liquid brewed coffee, and as it falls down this vertical chamber, it's losing moisture as it rains down, and what ends up at the bottom, splattering to the bottom of this
Is those
chamber,
granules?
is a powder.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
So to make the granules though, because coffee doesn't naturally do that, you've got to add other shit to it to make it
Yeah, so it's
into
fucked
like
up.
a granulated powder.
It's filth, man.
And one of the flavors that I always notice in instant coffee is like corn. I probably have just ruined instant coffee for all 7 of your listeners.
I hope so, because fuck, it's shit.
It tastes like corn, and part of me wonders if that's because there is like some kind of stabilizer that is used or a starchy thing to make it into those like neat looking little granules when really it should just be like a super, super, super fine powder.
Yeah, see, fuck that. Stop drinking the shit, people.
Yeah, don't drink
I'm not
instant
even
coffee.
plugging my own shit, but just stop drinking that shit.
Don't drink instant. It's not good.
Back on track.
Roasting.
We're talking about roasting.
Yeah,
so
cool.
what in a roast influences the flavour?
So how long the coffee spends inside the roaster and how hot it gets.
And there's not much variation in those two.
Oh, yeah.
Like to change to like a degree makes a lot of difference. A degree
Yeah,
of
for
temperature,
sure.
a minute of duration makes a lot of difference.
A minute is an eternity in roasting.
Yeah, okay.
I would probably start at like 15 seconds. Let's give it 15 seconds more, see what that does. And then that will be the difference between something that's like, yeah, that's pretty good, to something that's like, fuck, that's awesome. 15 seconds. Not even, less.
Less than 15 seconds.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Like we could roast the exact same batch where it gets to the same temperature and then we run 15 seconds longer and it could be amazing. Or it could be trash.
And
totally ruin
you'll
it.
taste the difference.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, right. And then time. So you got to find. Yeah, so you drew it up on a graph for me the other day, which made complete sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you need to find a perfect little medium.
I don't know. I can't think of an example that I can sort of give you a parallel to this. Like, I think about colour a lot. Maybe, fuck, somebody once told me that they think about roasts in terms of colour. That's weird. But if we imagine colour on a graph, you could be like, I'm going to try to pull more of the blue out or more of the green out or something like that. Like, I try to pull different compounds and make them more visible. Fuck, that sounds like such a retarded way to talk about something that you're not seeing.
It sounds weird, but I kind of get what you mean.
So when in coffee, your coffee bean has compounds in it. Fuck. Here's a good place to talk about perception. So how does taste work? Do you know how taste works?
Not really.
Taste is goddamn interesting. Like, so
beers taste good.
Beer's tasting really
We're nearly
good.
out. I'm going to have to go over the road and get a 6-pack.
We have 5 ways that we interact with the world around us. We have our ears, we have our eyes, we have our nose, we have our mouth, and we have our skin.
What about the feels, man?
That's where the feels come from, your skin, right?
No, but like the hypothetical, the metaphorical feels, you know?
Well, this is not an area that I'm well versed in because I'm actually just a robot.
Yeah, you're a heartless motherfucker. No, continue. Sorry.
God damn it, I was on a roll. I practiced this part in front of a mirror before.
Did you really?
No.
Ew. That's fucked up.
Perception is fucking interesting. We interact with the world around us through our eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and our skin. That's kind of it. I mean, if you want to talk about the feels, and sure, talk about the feels here.
Leave the feels out, man.
Leave the feels out. Okay, so that is kind of all that we have to interact with the world around us. When you smell something, right, a tiny little fragment of whatever the fuck it is that you're smelling lands on the inside of your nose. In our mouth, the organ that does tasting is called our tongue. Inside our nose, the organ that does smelling is called your olfactory epithelium. So a tiny little fragment lands on your olfactory epithelium, right? And this compound, whatever the fuck it is, will trigger a response. It will cause your olfactory epithelium to produce an electrical impulse, almost like Morse code, right? So let's say you're eating an apple, right? And you take a bite of the apple and there's apple inside your mouth and you sort of exhale and you can smell the apple and a tiny little fragment of apple lands on your olfactory epithelium and it produces a Morse code that's like 001, like binary, right? And that shoots up into your brain and your brain goes, fuck, here is the code. A code is being sent to me. What does that mean? And it links with your eyes, right? So we now have the apple in our hand. We have this crazy reaction going on inside of our nose and we're looking at this goddamn apple in our hand and we're like, okay, this thing means this response. This apple means this binary response.
Yeah. No, you're
I'm
right.
talking really loud.
You've been
getting
this. I like it. Do it. Keep hitting it.
So
I can adjust this.
We have this crazy thing going on. We have this apple in our hand and we're creating this memory.
Yep.
Right?
So when you see an apple, you can taste it?
Right?
Right.
Freaky. So what happens inside your brain is it has this one thing, this Morse code that means basically nothing until it gets linked to a memory.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Right? Okay. So it links to a memory. So all of a sudden we link the memory of an apple to the Morse code 001.
Yeah,
the
right.
binary code. And they link together. That link is probably not very strong. But over time, it gets stronger.
Okay.
So if you think about back through your whole life, you think back to like your lunchbox when you're in school, there was an apple there. You have been linking
Fucking Nutella, bud. Nutella. That shit.
LCMs.
Yeah.
You have been linking this electrical impulse that's being fired off by your mouth and by your nose to a memory your whole life. So now, let's talk about apple juice.
Yeah, right.
This is where shit gets really fucking weird. Let's say you had your
I feel like we are Joe Rogan.
Really?
Yeah.
You're ready to light it, like spark one up.
Are we on like
Can
DMT?
we? Is it allowed to? No, I'm not allowed to. I'm at work.
I don't care. I haven't got any, but it doesn't bother me.
Damn it, Jamie. When you think about apple juice, this is where shit gets really fucking weird. If you were blindfolded and you got given a glass of apple juice, before you even tasted it, just the smell of it, straight away, without a shadow of a doubt, all 7 of your listeners would know that that is apple juice. How the fuck do they know that? How does your brain know that? It's not solid. It doesn't even look like an apple. But the apple juice is giving off the same compounds which are landing on your olfactory epithelium and producing the Morse code response. So this is how somebody can have a good palate. They have practiced linking this Morse code to a memory. So when one of your mates, or somebody that you know, is swirling around a glass of wine, they're like, fuck, this smells like wine. It smells like fucking plums. Or white pepper. That is because that person has actively tried to link the code for white pepper with a memory. And so when that code is present in other forms,
this is fucked up.
Just like the apple juice, when that code is present in other forms, they can go, this reminds me of white pepper or plums or cherries or whatever the fuck we're talking about. So this is what happens. Like, this is the thing that's really super fucking cool about perception and the way that we perceive flavour and the world around us, is that you can get better at it.
Well, I guess that's where food critics come from, where chefs come from, where
they are constantly tasting, perceiving the world around them, and desperately trying to create memories as quick as they can. That's basically what my qualification was about. That's what the Q graders license was about. Was about being able to link memories and olfactory responses together so that you can pick them up at a moment's notice.
Right. So if you hypothetically never tasted a cup of coffee, right? And some dude give you 3 cups of coffee, and you try one, and you go, okay, that tastes good, and he's like, did you taste the chocolate? Did you taste the it doesn't have to be coffee, it can be food, doesn't matter.
Sure.
But did you taste that? Do you link him telling you that to yourself telling you that? So
look, the memories that form are probably...
what I'm trying to say is like, so you tell me that's a well-rounded cup of coffee, right? It's because you've told me, is my perception of that cup of coffee a well-rounded cup of coffee. So then when I taste a coffee that tastes similar, I'll be like, that's a well-rounded cup of coffee. Not because I organically came up with it. It's because you told me, and that's the memory.
So, okay.
Fucking rabbit hole.
So when it comes to being, communicating what we're experiencing, there is useful to have a guide, okay? Like, so when it comes to coffee, people ask me, what is your favourite cup? What is your favourite cup of coffee? And I think what they're asking is, do you like lattes, cappuccinos, long blacks? And my answer is, well, I get really excited about anything that is balanced in flavour, because that's really hard to produce in nature.
Yeah, okay.
And people are like, I just wanted to know what coffee you drink. But you think about that, like, there are a few things going on when we taste. We have sweetness, sourness, saltiness, bitterness, and umami.
What is umami?
Umami is savouriness. If you ever have like,
I know what you mean.
if you ever get a chance to have like raw MSG by itself, that's basically umami.
Right.
Raw MSG, say what you want about it, it's fucking great.
Yeah, it's not even bad for you. It's just this thing that people ran with for a while.
Probably. Sweetness, sourness, saltiness, bitterness, and umami. And if my coffee balances all of those things, then that's pretty fucking crazy. How the fuck did that happen? We have this fruit grown on the other side of the world that was picked by some usually unknown person. It was dried out in the sun and fermented for a little bit. It was shipped halfway around the world. It was thrown in this crazy machine that blasts it with crazy hot air. And then finally, we toss it into this other machine after smashing it into a million pieces. Then we pour scalding hot water over it. And then the drink that comes out of it is balanced. What the fuck?
When you put it like that, that's pretty full on.
If a coffee can do that for me, holy shit. That's fucking exciting.
I feel like that'd be hard to do. I feel like you'd be hard to impress
I'm pretty hard to impress.
with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
In general.
Well, that's probably in the same way when it comes to you thinking about fishing, right? Like I would be happy to catch a fish.
Yeah.
Any fish, don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I'd be stoked to do that. But you would be thinking about the placement of the lure, the colour of the lure.
Everything.
What psyche stage of its day is that
Yeah.
fish in to be in this position?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've been chasing barra for the last month and a half with a friend and haven't really cracked it yet, but seen heaps on the sounder. And I come home and I'm like, that was a good day.
That must be frustrating.
Way frustrating. And they're massive. Yeah. And I'm like, I come home and I'm like, yeah, that was sick. Like, had a fat day because I learnt heaps about all of the other variables. Like putting the fish on the deck, like that's the last step in the process. Yeah. It's weird. It's very relatable.
So when I think about cooking, cooking fish, cooking anything, those are the things I'm trying to balance. I get really excited about, like, it's all well and good to add a fuckload of salt, but maybe if you toss a little bit of lemon on it, holy shit, we've got something that is now becoming complex. Toss a little bit of umami with like fish sauce, like, you know, the fish sauce, toss a little bit of that on it. Fuck, we've got something, a little bit of sugar. Oh my God, we've got something that's gone crazy now. It was originally just a bit of meat, is now a little bit salty, a little bit acidic. Yeah. There's some
How do you achieve that in coffee?
How do we achieve that in coffee?
Like the best way to get close to achieving
some
that.
coffee trees will load different compounds into its fruit. This comes back to the sort of varietal discussion.
Yep.
Some coffee trees will put more acid. Some coffee trees will put more sugar into their seed, which gives me more stuff to work with as a roaster. So as a roaster, the thing I'm really excited about is that there's the whole scientific side of things, measuring degrees and time and all that sort of thing. But then there's like this artistic craft. I get the opportunity to display this coffee a certain way. What potential do I see in this coffee? And how do I want to showcase that? This coffee from Brazil doesn't have a stack of acidity, but it has a fuckload of weighty body. How can I show that off and also maybe balance the acidity that it does have with its body?
Yep.
This coffee is from Kenya. It's very acidic, but it has this sort of really delicate sweetness underneath it. Yep. How can I showcase those compounds, you know, with the skill that I have? That's kind of what I'm trying to do. Every degree, every minute is trying to pull on a thread. Can I get a bit more sweetness? Can I get a bit more balance?
That makes sense. That's crazy. Yeah, we're going to have to go get some more beers, man.
More beers.
Right, we're back. Got some beers. They're actually fucking terrible. I was like, hey, because we're both driving, and I was like, oh, is there any mid-strength beers there that are like sort of crafty? She's like, oh yeah, these ones are cool. Yeah, there was an 8-pack for $16, but they're small beers, so I thought, value for money, it's not too bad. And they're pretty fucking shit. Which, yeah, I don't know.
Not awesome.
Not awesome. They're fucking alcohol and they're beer, so it's close.
Totally.
Better than your homebrew or worse?
Yeah, better. Homebrew's pretty shit. I was super excited about it,
I know, man. You'll come
I
good.
was being more objective about it, and I was like, yeah, look, it's not.
It'll come good. It'll come good.
Yeah.
So I put a Q&A story up while we've been talking, just on my
Did ya?
storyline. I did.
Did ya?
Put a Q&A story up. I had a question from someone. So we were talking about flavours and stuff, and how you, because I've spoken to this person about it, how you, I guess just basically elaborate on the flavours. Like, how do you...
Tasting takes practice, and you
Yeah.
need like a framework. You need a framework to understand the way that you taste.
Yep.
Just kind of like composition, right?
Yep.
So, okay. Sweetness, sourness, saltiness, bitterness, and umami. Those are things that we can pay attention to.
Yep.
And then the other thing that we can think about are textures.
Yeah. So you've got flavours.
Okay, so let's
and
talk
we've got-
about these beers. We're just talking about them and how shit one is and how decent the other one is. Okay.
Yeah, well, I said peppery and then you said dry.
Right. Okay. So, okay, it's really hard to taste something in a vacuum by itself. We taste something and then we go, it tastes okay, but then we do something to it and we go, oh, that's way better, or in most cases, worse.
Yeah. Yep. Basically.
So, for instance, okay, so let's look at these two beers. We've got two beers. We've got one beer that is weighty. It has weight. It has body. It has texture. Right? The texture is... And so let's think about texture. In my mind, I'm tasting this beer and I'm like, what's the texture like? Is it very light and thin and dry, or is it weighty, syrupy, viscous?
And that's the latter.
Okay, well,
for
it's
me.
in comparison to this new light beer that we have,
Yeah.
it's definitely weighty and syrupy and viscous in comparison to it. You know? And none of these things are bad. I was just thinking before about, like your favourite coffee being balanced. Sure, I love balanced food. I always try to seek balance in the food that I'm cooking. Except when I'm not. Because, like, how fucking good are fish and chips? Like, it's just salt. That's it. It's just salt. Chips. Fucking so good.
Yeah.
Salt and fat.
Yeah.
Fucking great.
Get in my belly.
Yeah, I feel like that right now.
There's a burger shop next door.
Yeah, there is. I'm having one right after this.
Are you really? I'm coming with you.
Definitely.
I'm starving.
just going to go get some bloody brisket.
Yeah.
So it's like a decision tree. Is it heavy or is it light? Okay, well, it's pretty heavy. Or it's light. Okay, it's light. Light like what? Is it acidic or is it sort of floral? No, it's kind of acidic. Okay, acidic. Like, and we keep going down this decision tree, and I don't know if there is a parallel, because I don't know fuck all about fishing. I know that they exist.
Yep.
Send a picture of one
you've done
on
well,
your
man.
Instagram. Thanks.
You've done well. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad I enlightened you, man.
So we go down this sort of decision tree about which direction we feel like this thing's going, and we just constantly make little adjustments to it. That's what tasting is about.
Yeah, and I guess the same applies to everything. Cool. That sort of answers that one. I'll bundle a couple up. I guess there's no perfect's probably not the right choice of words, but the best way to brew. So you've got your home espresso machine. Let's just go, okay, I've got a pretty high-end home espresso machine.
Sure.
And I've got a grinder. I'll add the grinder in because then we'll go through the whole lot.
Totally.
I want to brew basically a perfect coffee. Whether I add milk to it or not, whatever. I just want that shot.
Espresso's really bloody hard to do. Espresso's really fucking hard, and I struggle with it every single day, and I've been doing this professionally for forever. Espresso's hard to do, but
So
there's a few little sort of hacks.
Okay, so hypothetically your roast
yeah.
is... Yes.
Yes, hacks. Everybody wants a hack in their life, don't they?
Hypothetically, it's a good quality bean.
Sure. Well, that's the first thing. Like, if you're buying rubbish coffee, we've talked about what rubbish coffee is. We've talked about how there are some varietals, like Robusta, that just taste shit no matter what you do to them. And there are some coffee roasting companies out there that don't give a fuck what part of the coffee bean they are showcasing. They just want it to taste brown, right? If if you're working with coffee like that, then it's going to be hard to get something that you get really, really excited about.
Well, the people buying machines are probably going to be legit snobbish.
You would hope so.
Coffee notes, yeah.
You'd hope so.
Righto.
So, let's assume that you're buying really well roasted coffee that's been treated with care.
Mm-hmm.
Then one of the hacks, one of the little rules of thumb that I almost always use is a ratio of 2 to 1. Okay, what the fuck am I talking about? The amount of ground coffee that you use should make you double that in espresso.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I sort of get what you mean.
Okay, so here at Freelance, we use 20 grams of coffee in every single basket.
Basket being the little jimmy that you put under the thing that the water goes through, like the little spoon, basically.
Sure.
That's what it is.
Spoon works.
It's a spoon.
This is a spoon
with holes in the bottom.
Fucking hell.
Coffee basket.
Coffee basket. Some people call it a portafilter or just the handle.
Yes.
Yes. Coffee. So here at Freelance, we use 20 grams. Your home espresso machine probably won't fit 20 grams of coffee in it. But by using a set of scales, like a proper bloody drug dealer, you can weigh the exact amount of coffee that you use. So like if you've ever made a cup of coffee and you're like, fuck, that was good. And then you try to do it again tomorrow and you're like, yeah, it's just not the same.
How much coffee is in one of those baskets?
20.
It's 20 gram basket. Okay, so when you do it, like how you...
So you come into Freelance and you order a flat white. I'm going to put 20 grams of coffee in the basket, and that's going to make 2 espressos.
Yep. Is packing it in the basket the right thing to do?
No, that's important to do.
Okay.
This is a neat little segue. I'm working on an online coffee class. And I also have a
plug your shit, man. Plug your shit.
I'll plug. It's probably a bit late to be plugging. Everybody else is tuned out now. Nobody's listening to this. Damn, I should have plugged at the beginning.
Yes, damn, you fucked it up.
I've got a YouTube channel. Go check it out. Just follow me on Instagram. It's probably the easiest way to do it. And
at Ryan Toleman.
At Ryan Toleman. That's right. But I'm also working an online coffee class. Mm-hmm. And tamping's really important. If we don't tamp, then we get all kinds of issues.
Tamping is the smushing of the coffee in the basket.
It's the smushing of the coffee in the basket. That's really important. If we don't do it, we just get all kinds of negative.
He's here.
My boss has just turned up and he just looked in the window at the podcast setup.
Does he know you're doing it?
Yeah. I let him know this morning.
Sick.
By the way, don't come in.
He's here, but... No, Calvin's actually a really nice guy.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
Anyway, yes. So it's important. Why?
So, tamping.
They're really loud people.
Yeah, tamping is really important because if you're brewing espresso at home, you do need to tamp correctly, because water is going to flow through the coffee bed. You want it to flow at an even rate. Mm-hmm. You think about every single coffee fragment that is in that basket. That all needs the same time in contact with fresh water.
Yep.
Every single fragment. And if there are any pockets of air or cracks or divots or any areas of less resistance, the water is going to travel through that area, which is going to receive more water flow and become bitter faster.
Yep.
Because it's going to extract more.
Yep. Makes sense.
So tamping helps kind of mitigate you brewing an espresso that is kind of sour and bitter at the same time.
I know this is a hard question to answer, but how hard are you packing that in there?
Look, I don't really put a lot of weight behind the tamper. It doesn't have to be heaps. You don't have to smash it in there. Just your body weight. Just a little bit of pressure. It doesn't have to be you forcing it in there. Just a little bit of a press will be more than enough.
Then what? So you put it in there, you put it in the machine?
Well, you're using the same amount of coffee to start off with.
So 20 grams?
We are removing a variable. We're using exactly 20 grams every single time. Or if your home espresso machine doesn't fit 20 grams in it, work out what it does fit. It might only be 14 grams. It might be fucking 10.
Yep. So
everybody's home espresso machine is going to be a little bit different.
So you want 14 grams to produce how much liquid?
So we double it.
So you want 14 grams to produce 28 milliliters?
28 grams of espresso.
Oh, so we're weighing the liquid.
Yeah, you've got to weigh the liquid too, because espresso has foam on top.
Yeah, right.
And depending on how old your coffee is, you're going to get more or less foam.
Yep.
So the crema that sits on top of the coffee, on top of your espresso, is because of the carbon dioxide that's in the coffee seeds from when you roast.
Yeah, right.
Now, depending on how dark the roaster roasted the coffee is going to produce more carbon dioxide. Depending on the age of the coffee is going to produce more or less carbon dioxide. Well, not produce, but allow for degassing. So it's really hard to measure espresso by volume because it's just a foam.
Yep.
As soon as it pours out of the cup, that's all well and good, but you look away for a second, that foam is going to condense just a little bit and there'll be slightly less in the cup. So using a set of scales will remove another variable.
Okay.
So let's assume it's a home espresso machine. Let's say it's 14 grams. You now have doubled that. You have a 28 gram espresso.
Yep.
That process of brewing to receive your 28 grams of espresso should take 30 seconds.
Right. So, yeah, okay. That makes sense.
So we now have in the industry our recipe. If you went into any cafe and gave them that recipe, they would be able to produce the espresso that you make at home.
Yep.
So in the industry, we share this information that way. 20 grams in, 40 grams out, 30 seconds. I would know how to brew that espresso. Tamping is important and distribution is important too. You want to remove, the water needs to flow through the coffee bed really evenly.
Yeah, okay.
Think about it like this, maybe. Every single little fragment of coffee is brewing or cooking like baked potatoes, roast potatoes at home. So you've chopped up your potatoes, right, tossed them in the tray, and before you put them in the oven, you shake the tray. Everybody does this. So that all of the potatoes are cooking evenly. They're not all piled up to one side, they're all stuck in the center. The same thing has to happen for the granules of coffee in the basket. You need to shake it so that the coffee is even in the basket before tamping. That is, if you do those things, you're going to get a way cleaner, rounder, smoother tasting espresso.
Yep.
Check out my YouTube channel. There's a whole stack of videos about this example.
There actually is. We'll plug your fucking pages and shit at the end. Because,
God damn, it's hard to explain this sort of thing.
It is. The videos are actually...
visual.
The video,
it's hard to do that.
The plunger is a good one.
You like that one?
Yeah, that's a really good video. Can you... So there's obviously not everyone has a fucking flash espresso machine.
So if you're like fuck it, I want great tasting coffee at home.
Yep.
But I don't want to shell out a couple of grand for an espresso machine and a grinder.
Yep.
What should I get?
Yep.
There are two methods for brewing coffee that I think are fucking great. There is the V60. It's made by a company called Hario. You should buy the 2-cup version.
Yeah.
Yep. The V60 is excellent.
Yep.
I really like the V60 because you can brew coffee for a bunch of people.
Yeah.
At family gatherings, I'm always the one that ends up getting stuck brewing
it's a press,
coffee.
Obviously, yeah.
No, it's not a press.
It's not a press.
It's like an American style dripper.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
They're great for brewing bulk coffee for a bunch of people. But you don't get a lot of control over the way that it brews. If you don't have a grinder, you kind of don't really get to control the flow rate. And this is where my favorite... So this is great for brewing bulk coffee for a bunch of people.
Yep.
And it's great if you have a grinder. But if you don't have a grinder and you just want to get excellent coffee just for yourself or maybe for one other person, that's where the AeroPress comes in. They are goddamn the best. That's how I brew coffee on the weekends, in an AeroPress.
Yeah.
It is the simplest way to brew coffee.
Yep.
If you don't have a grinder, you should have an AeroPress.
Yep.
If you don't mind, if you don't have to brew coffee for lots of people, it should be an AeroPress.
AeroPress is fucking amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah, I've had one for a little while now and absolutely love it. We're actually going to be stocking them on the Flow State website.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm that impressed. And they're portable too.
Yeah, they're plastic. They're really light. You can't break them like other ceramic things or glass or whatever.
Yeah. So what? Might as well explain what it is.
Okay, so it's kind of like a big syringe. It's a bit like a plunger.
Yeah.
But like a French press. But it's been re-engineered by somebody who
likes their coffee.
Likes
someone
coffee.
like you.
Yeah. They're a great little system for... It's going to sound like a fucking ad. I just love them.
It's a bit of product plug, but not necessarily. I'm not plugging product because I want to make money. I'm plugging product because it's fucking good.
Couldn't agree more. Because people out there everybody wants great coffee in their life.
Yeah,
and
that's why I'm going down this road.
Determine as good coffee, is up to them.
Yeah.
But everybody wants to feel like everyone wants to. If you are like me, your day doesn't start until you've had coffee.
Oh man, I drink unhealthy amounts, and I'm drinking coffee at 10 p.m.
That's dangerous.
Real bad. And I still fall asleep like a baby.
Yeah, right.
I don't have caffeine sensitivity. Plus, I don't sleep enough.
Yeah,
so coffee doesn't do fuck all. Probably addicted. Headache by smoko time if I haven't had coffee.
Dude, I tried to go caffeine free for a weekend, and
how can you do that when you work at one of these places? You'd be absorbing caffeine through your skin and your nose and shit.
I try to do it semi-regularly, do a detox, just not have any.
Fuck that.
Oh man, it's the worst. It's the worst come down. Probably worse than heroin. Probably. I don't know. Definitely.
Definitely is.
Definitely worse
than heroin.
Sorry to all of your heroin addicted listeners.
I hope there's fucking not many. I don't want that sort of client base.
Oh god.
Fucking hell.
I tried to detox off coffee one weekend, and we were driving to a family thing. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I haven't had any coffee for 24 hours. And I'm I can't see properly out of my left eye.
Yeah, it fucks you up. It's legit. It's people don't understand how...
Screaming headache. Yeah. Screaming headache. And I couldn't see properly.
Yeah.
Brutal.
It's savage.
Fuck, I shouldn't be driving.
Yeah, it's fucking... People don't underestimate how actual savage it is. Yeah, but it's fucking amazing. And it's full of antioxidants and all sorts of lovely stuff.
It's probably a vegetable.
It's basically
It used to be a fruit.
Yeah, it's basically party at 2 and 5, man.
Fruit every day.
It's party at 2 and 5. Anyway, AeroPress is like the sleeve.
Aeropresses are great.
Paper filter, why?
Okay, so paper filters are really fucking good because coffee, when it breaks,
which is in the AeroPress.
When you grind,
sorry, this doesn't make sense unless I say that.
Look, I hope that if anybody is still listening to this, they've at least brewed a cup of coffee in their life.
I hope
once.
so.
So, when coffee grinds, when it kind of shatters. Because it's brittle, right? So we get these tiny little fragments. In the industry, we call them fines. Tiny, almost microscopic fragments of coffee.
Yep.
That eventually will make its way through the brew and onto your tongue. If you're using something like a French press, like a plunger, it's going to make the coffee sort of taste a bit sort of dry and powdery, which makes sense because you actually have powder on your tongue. So paper filters are really, really good for this. So a paper filter is going to remove any of these tiny fragments. And it's going to clean up the brew. It's going to make your brew feel richer and cleaner and less... A lot of people will describe it as bitter. But basically a dry, powdery sensation on your tongue.
Yep.
Paper filters are fucking great for that. They are so good for that. So the AeroPress kind of uses the method that is great for a plunger. A plunger is great because if you don't have control over your grind size, you can just let it brew for longer. Yep. If you tasted a plunger coffee and you're like, it's been kind of sour and it's not very strong, well, the next one you could just let it sit for longer. Right?
Yeah.
Just keep letting it sitting for longer and longer and longer until you're eventually like, hey, that's strong enough for me. A 5-minute brew is where I like it.
If I've got time, I don't do the push thing. I don't press it's it's basically 2 cylinders and one cylinder
like a syringe
with a rubber boot. Yeah, and it fits inside the other. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Syringe pushing it through a paper filter.
Sure.
If I have the time, I just let it drip through the paper filter.
Huh.
And it's fucking delicious. If I've got time, like when I get up.
How long does that take?
A little while, like maybe 8-10 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then sometimes like if I'm impatient, there's like a half or a third of it left, I just push it through with the press. But yeah, it completely changes the intensity of it.
Totally.
Yeah. It's delicious. I mean, yeah. So where were we going to that?
AeroPresses are awesome.
Yeah.
If you're brewing coffee at home, an AeroPress.
Did you want to talk about? We'll just pause this.
Mate.
Boss man's in.
Dragon. How you doing? Have you been to the gym?
Right, we're back. Ryan just got a roasting off his boss. So,
barely. As if.
You're walking around serving people with like holes in your pants, man.
Yeah, I was picking up a coffee machine and then I was putting it down, being like aware of my lumbar spine and
Correct posture.
correct posture, and you've got to hinge back, and I just blew the ass out of my pants. Shit,
That's crook.
It's like in hospitality, you don't want to be walking around with
Arseless chaps.
assless chaps. I mean, it's probably a niche market there.
There definitely is. It sounds like you're experiencing that, man. We were talking about little tips and tricks, correct ways to brew shit. So I know, like espresso machines in people's houses, probably there are not a lot of people that do it that way. The next step down obviously would be, well, we spoke about AeroPress. The next step down would probably be French press.
French press is an excellent way to brew coffee at home, but there's a few things that kind of fuck it up. I love a French press because you can basically pick them up from
we having one more beer?
shop. I'm not even fucking halfway through this.
It's like a
shit tasting
200ml can, no, 330ml cans. We're really going to be able to drive. We're going to have to go have a big feed.
I'm so hungry too.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, that's full. God damn.
You're still full.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but even though it's shit, you still got to,
I'm still battling a hangover from Friday. I'd go solid.
growing up life.
Yeah. Plungers are great.
Yes.
Like the French press is great because you can pick them up for a couple of bucks from like Target or bloody Safeway even has them.
Yeah, so we're talking like basically, normally they're mostly glass. They've got a mesh.
Totally.
They've got a shaft and a mesh thing on the bottom.
Shaft.
See, I told you you're in that niche market, Buzz.
Niche market. So they're awesome because they're cheap and they can make great coffee, but there's a few things that kind of fuck with them. I was talking about fines before, these tiny little fragments that make their way through the filter and into your brew. And so with a plunger, because the mesh is so massive, the holes are really big. You can fit a lot of fragments through it. That really can mess with the texture of your brew. So there's a couple of things that you can do. When the ratio, the recipe that you use to brew your coffee is for filter, like a French press, is 60 grams to a litre. So if you're making a coffee for yourself, you can use about 15 grams of coffee and it's going to make a 250 gram drink.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty decent sized mug of coffee.
Yep.
So it's a bit less than espresso. It's not as strong.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that fucks that up, one of the things it can do to sort of stop the coffee being too powdery and dry and sort of just like dry on your tongue is by stirring it. So you toss your ground coffee into the plunger, boiling water or water that's just off the boil on top, give it a stir. That's going to sort of release any of the little fragments and hopefully they sink to the bottom.
Yeah, okay, so they're caught in bubbles and shit or what? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah.
So once you've done that, you've stirred it, you've used the right amount of coffee, you've used the right amount of water, you've given it a good stir, you let it brew for a period of time that you enjoy.
Roughly
3 to 5 minutes.
Yep.
3 to 5 minutes. If you like your coffee a little bit sort of less strong, 3 minutes, more strong, 5 minutes.
Yep.
When you press the plunger, you're going to do it really, really slowly.
Yep.
Because you don't want to sort of like force those fragments through the filter. Mm-hmm. And then finally, when you get to the bottom, you want to leave like a gap, call it a centimetre, between the mesh and the sort of sludge that forms at the bottom. You don't want to smash it all the way into that.
Obviously,
because
same reason.
It's going to pass through the filter and back into your drink. Mm-hmm. It basically defeats the purpose of using a filter in the first place.
Yep.
When you tip the drink, finally, you want to tip it into a carafe. Like, if let's say you were brewing a litre, you scaled up your recipe and you brewed a litre to last you all day, and you're tipping it into a carafe, or maybe it's just into your cup, like just like a
big jug,
or like a, what do they call them? Fucking thermos.
Oh yeah.
How good's a thermos?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
You're set all day with hot coffee.
Yep.
Tip into a thermos or your cup. You don't want to tip the whole brew out. You don't want to empty the entire plunger out. You want to leave like a little bit of brew
Yep.
coffee at the bottom, brewed coffee at the bottom, because that mostly contains this sludge, these coffee fines, mostly contains that anyway, so you can sort of mitigate that going into your drink and then eventually onto your tongue by reserving some of the bottom part of that brew by not tipping it all out.
Yep.
That's going to make your plunger coffee way sweeter, cleaner, and just overall.
Yep, and you can cold brew that too.
Yeah, just toss that straight in the fridge.
Yep.
Don't people brew coffee with cold water? I don't think it's a
Like
great...
cold drip? No.
Yeah.
So what it is? No.
Yeah. Look, I don't really like it. I find them really unbalanced. I find them very sour tasting and they lack balance. I don't know. There's something about it that I just don't like. It just feels weird.
Yeah, okay.
Weird texture. Just not quite right. A bit like this beer. Just not quite there.
This beer's fucking horse shit.
I think it's way better to brew your coffee really, really, really well
Yeah.
and then just toss it in the fridge.
Yep.
That seems to work way
Is that
better.
technically a cold brew? Not really, because you're not brewing
Well, it's
cold.
chilled hot brew if you wanted to be fucking
We're gonna call it. We're gonna bottle it up and call it chilled hot brew.
chilled hot brew.
All right. The third and final question. I'll leave it at 3. Civet Cat coffee. I know you'd probably know about this. Coffee Luwak.
Coffee.
Cat shit coffee.
It's not good. Have you had it?
No, I refuse to pay top dollar for something cat shit out.
What is the reported price of?
I got no idea, but I know it's expensive. I heard it's expensive.
Yeah, I've had it before. Yeah, what's the cost of?
I'm gonna Google it.
Pull that up,
James on it, Bruss.
Jamie.
So what is?
Okay, so the idea
What's it
is
called?
it's fucking so dumb.
What's
Goddamn that movie, that dumb movie, fucking whatever.
What
it's
movie?
With fucking Morgan Freeman, The Bucket List.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Bucket List, and he talks
So-
about that. That's where it kind of all blew up from that goddamn movie.
What sort of coffee? What is it called? Coffee what?
Okay. Coffee Luwak. Luwak coffee. Coffee Luwak.
Yeah. Okay.
And the idea is that there is this ferret-like fucking animal called a civet.
Where does it originate?
Bali.
Thailand?
Sure.
I feel like it's Thailand.
Somewhere
See how
like
they
that.
say it, we'll just
I
say.
had it in Bali. That's where I
okay.
drank it. I saw the cats and saw the
Right,
shit
okay.
and saw them roast it and was appalled by the whole process. So there's the idea that there's this fucking cat and this little ferret-shaped fucking thing, and that it only prefers the ripest cherries. And somebody chases after this goddamn cat.
Okay. Woo.
Okay.
Pause.
You found something.
Fuck me if this is legit. Like, I'm just Googling, so it could be bullshit. But there's a Business Insider that says, holy fuck me dead, $35 to $100 a cup.
Yeah, I probably paid about $35 for mine.
That's fucking crook, man. What's wrong with people? Right. Sorry, continue.
I would pay $35 for a really unique coffee experience.
It'd want to, like, yeah, the experience.
Right? Like, I probably...
Yeah, I
I
guess.
think I've paid... the most I've paid for an espresso was $20. And it was an ultra rare varietal. And it was great. It was really yummy. And it fell outside of what I ever could experience coffee tasted like. It was really interesting.
Right.
And, yeah. It
Okay.
was from El Salvador. It was a varietal called Orange Bourbon. I'd never had it before. It was awesome. Probably a marketing thing too. Like, it probably, like the profit ratio
Probably
that
just
the
had, like,
roaster
cocaine in it
made.
or something.
Look, if it had cocaine in it, I'd probably... Anyway.
Yeah, so Civet Cat originated in Southeast Asia.
And the idea is that this cat goes around and eats only the ripest cherries, and then some poor fucking bastard has to chase after the cat and pick the beans out of its shit, and then roast those beans and then brew them.
Right.
Okay.
And what is it supposed to make it that's...
Well, it's meant to make it taste amazing. And there's a whole bunch of fucking reported reasons. First of all, the cat has only picked the ripest cherries. Second of all, there's something reportedly about the enzymes of the cat's stomach reacting with the seed changes the composition of the seed. Look, this is fucking bullshit. It's
Hit me,
fucking
buzz.
bullshit. Okay, so seeds have been passing through the intestinal tract of animals since time immemorial and not changing.
That's true.
Because if they did, they wouldn't fucking grow. since the dawn of time.
I feel like this is contentious.
It's not. It's just dumb. God damn that movie. God. So, the other idea that a cat is going to pick out only the ripest cherries. Okay, so because of this movie, the value of this coffee is going through the roof. There is more demand for Luwak coffee than there is supply. So these cats are put into captivity, they're put in cages, and they are force-fed exclusively coffee, which is disgusting. I have been to a coffee place. I've been to a bunch of coffee places.
As fuck too.
It's fucking disgusting. I've been there. I've seen it. I have been to coffee plantations. I mentioned briefly that I got the opportunity to help set up one in Uganda. I have eaten a lot of coffee cherries by themselves straight off the tree, and it's an awful feeling. Awful high. You know when you drink like so much coffee that you start to sweat and you start to get crazy anxiety,
twitchy,
and you shake and you twitch and you can't think and you feel like you're going to die, feel like you're going to spew. That's what it feels like when you eat coffee cherries.
Right.
When you drink a lot of coffee, you can imagine that you're not consuming all of the caffeine that is available, but when you eat it, you're getting the whole lot.
And
it's an awful feeling. Worst high. Don't recommend. Not good. Don't do it.
Yeah, right.
And so these cats are force-fed coffee, right? And then, which is not the... Well, then they're not picking the ripest cherries because somebody fucking picked them for them and then just gave it to them. So the whole process is utter bullshit.
Right.
But it does taste a little bit better than all of that. Well, at least the experience I had was it was a little bit better than all of the other coffees that we got to taste from that plantation. Here's my theory behind that. Coffee is traditionally roasted over fire, basically in a wok, right? And that's not a great way to roast coffee. You want to basically use, if you want me to go into coffee machine design, maybe we'll do that another time, podcast 2.0. But basically roasting coffee over direct flames is not ideal. We want even heat added to the coffee. But the person that's roasting this civet coffee knows how valuable it is, so they pay a little bit more attention to the way that they're roasting it.
Yep.
And also the person brewing knows the value of this coffee, so they pay a little bit more attention to the way that they're brewing it. And everything else from the plantation they don't give a fuck about, and therefore it tastes better.
Yep.
So sure, it tasted marginally less bitter and slightly less dirty from all of the other coffees that came from the plantation.
Yep.
But I have had coffees that are a million times better, worlds away from civet coffee, that have just been picked off the tree by a goddamn human.
Not shit out of a cat.
Not shit out of a cat.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
And now I feel like a fuckhead because I've actually bought a cup of this stuff, but I really recommend you don't do it.
For the non...
Don't bother.
For the inhumane part of it, that's fucked up. Same as coffee. I have
Eating whale.
Yeah, I'll have I had pod machine eating whale. That's all right.
Is that all right?
I feel like it. If it's sustainably, putting a fucking wild animal in a cage is fucked up.
I'd eat whale.
I'd eat a whale, but as long as it's sustainably.
What wouldn't you eat? What cute cuddly animal would you not eat?
There's not much I wouldn't eat.
I've heard that about you.
Fucking hell. I'll try anything 3 times.
$50 is $50.
True that. No, I don't know. If it's sustainably and humanely sourced, I'll try whatever.
Sure.
I don't know. I've never been offered a primate. I feel like that's a little bit not a human, but I mean the monkeys and shit. I don't know if I could do that.
Oh, I feel like a monkey would be gross. Dog would be gross.
I'd try. But see, that's cruel as fuck the way they do that. I got no issues with people eating dogs. I got issues with people that skin the fuckers alive and do all that bad shit, man.
Fuck, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like eating a monkey would be a bit weird. I'd probably steer clear of bat too at the moment. I'd probably steer clear of that.
Yeah, that's probably Yeah, you don't eat silly shit and give the world fucking a pandemic, man. You don't do that. fucking around. Like, but there's no need to eat a fucking bat. Do you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck for?
Eat
Go
chicken.
Buy a chook.
Eat a chicken.
I don't know, not a
Probably
chook.
way
Go
easier
eat
to catch.
Fuck if I know anything but a bat. Whatever. But, yeah. Don't know. If it's sustainably and humanely and ethically sourced,
Sure.
I'll eat basically whatever.
So legit coffee luwak, probably like that's probably not what I got to experience. I didn't get to experience a wild cat and some poor bastard like scurrying after it through
Scooping
the
up
forest,
cat shit.
scooping up these. Nah, that's not what happens.
If you're going to buy a Civet Cat coffee, you'd want to buy that and not the Civet Cat coffee out of a cat cage.
Totally.
You want to buy Civet Cat coffee that had some dude
And
running
above
around.
all of those things, you probably wouldn't buy either of them. You just go down to your local and buy their coffee because it's been roasted by a human that can actually taste and is not a goddamn cat.
That's probably true. That's interesting.
Oh, goddamn.
What's next?
Oh, mate. That's a great question. I just get really excited about
Coffee.
coffee. I just get excited about sharing it with people. So,
Yeah.
look, as I said earlier, you know, how can I do what I do for more people? That is what I'm going to be working on. How can I get this product that me and the team here at Freelance, we work really hard on to try and understand whether or not it's good. We are always looking for people to share that with, be it customers that come to the cafe at Freelance or wholesale accounts that want to use our coffee. That's what like really gets us fucking excited.
You can't have my coffee though.
No,
My coffee's
no,
special.
you can't have. Well, that's because that's specifically done for you. So, like, anything that we can do to put this into more people's hands, I think is really interesting.
Man, it's a great concept that you got running. It's like,
And this is the thing that is kind of fucking really cool about coffee. Like, beyond all of the shit that I've talked about, all of the sciencey bullshit and all of the going down the rabbit hole of perception and the way that humans actually interact with the world around us, coffee for us, in my view, is about people.
it's a social thing.
Right?
It's hugely social, I think.
People come to Freelance to socialise. They don't come here just for a cup of coffee. Coffee is just a vehicle for community to happen. That, I think, is really exciting. So when you change your lens from being like, I want to brew the best coffee in the world, don't get me wrong, I try really hard to do that. But the thing that I get most excited about is the people that get to be... Fuck, I sound like I'm like on my soapbox here, but I do get really excited about the people that come in.
Can you hang on a second? I just got to get my violin.
Get your violin. Is it the smallest violin in the world? It's playing just for me.
It is, man.
I get excited about the people that come in here, the community that you get to be a part of.
Yep.
There's a few things. When I was in Uganda, the community of the people that grow the coffee from the plantation that I got to work with, which is called Zakuka Bora. We'll put a link in the show notes, maybe. Fuck, I don't know. Is that what you say?
You got to remind me to do that. We can. I can do
So
whatever
this is
you
the
want.
plantation I got to set up, and the community of the people that grew this coffee are some of the most connected people I think I've ever seen. Here in Australia, we live these bizarre, disconnected lives where we don't know the people around us. Coffee shops are kind of like one of the last bastions of that, of community happening outside of our home.
Yeah.
The people that grow the coffee that I get to be involved with are salt of the earth human beings that are out there with their hands in their dirt, and they are producing something that
Is personalised.
beyond all of the variations and chances for it to taste like shit, somehow this product comes out tasting good and it brings people together. How fucking bizarre is that as a concept?
It's pretty cool.
Isn't it? And that's the thing I get really excited about. I
feel like alcohol doesn't even do that. Not all alcohol.
Not in the same way. Not
No.
quite the same way.
No. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that, like, well, I love coffee, and I've always been a
Obviously.
coffee nerd, but never and like this level nerd.
Yeah, there's not many of us.
No.
Probably a good thing.
No.
The people that I get to be involved with are awesome. The people I get to meet, the lives that I get to hear about, like, You can't beat it.
Yeah. Well, we met randomly. Really, when you think about it.
Totally.
I was just looking for
A coffee supplier.
someone with the same vision I had.
Sure.
For it, and then like literally over coffee.
Sure.
Because we did that cupping, and then all of a sudden there was like similarities in
Totally.
our interests and our drive and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
The people that come to freelance, like, you could look at it as, oh, here's just a woman coming to get a flat white, or here is a dude just coming to get his cappuccino. But all of a sudden you start to realise that these are people and they're living lives that are very similar to yours. They worry about the same stuff and they get excited about the same shit. I've had people come in, how are you going? What's going on today? Not very good. What's happening? And before you know it, their father just died, or they've just been diagnosed with cancer, or they're about to go through divorce, or or the complete opposite. I've had somebody come in and this blew my mind, and I got so goddamn excited about this. Somebody came in and they said, I'll just have a decaf flat white, when normally they didn't. I was like, haha, you must be pregnant. And they were, and they had found out a few minutes beforehand.
That's epic.
Right? That experience, that's cool as fuck.
Yep. And I think a lot of my listeners, all 6 or 7 of them, that because this podcast started off as a very fishing based, because that's my jam. But a lot of the people in the fishing game will relate to that.
Yeah.
Like-minded fish shows. So there's fish shows on all different levels. And then you get these people that basically are what you are in fishing. Like, as passionate as you are about coffee, they are in fishing.
And that freaks me out as well. I've listened to the one about your Barra guy, and he's talking about like the psychology of Barra.
That's not even scratching the surface of it.
I listened, and that blew my mind. I came away from that, I was like, fuck.
That's not even scratching. Oh, which one? The most
most recent one.
Oh, Jim's one. Yeah, wait, listen to episode 2.
Okay.
With Dan Powell.
Okay.
That guy is a lord, like meter barra lord, like
freaky.
Basically be the fish.
Sure.
Type shit, but can't like fully get the full detail because it gives too much away.
Because of the spot?
No, it's way more. Its spots are obviously are obviously a massive contributing factor, but there's so much more involved. Exactly the same as coffee. So where I buy my coffee would be the equivalent to a fishing spot. How that coffee, where that coffee comes from, and how it's sourced is relative to, how the tree fucking grows.
Doesn't that freak you out?
It's so relatable, man. It's insane. Yeah, I think that's why I've got a connection to it, because and a connection to like what you're all about. And I think it connects again with the culture I'm trying to develop with flow state. Because flow state's applicable across the board. And I said this last night on my other podcast. Yeah.
I was thinking about it to say, there's levels to it. I feel like it's something I should be saying when I'm stoned out of my skull. Man, the levels. But there really are levels to these sort of things, and you can go as deep as you want. And like when you are sitting there in the boat considering which shade of red is going to be most attractive to the fish, what you're trying to understand is like millions of years of evolution that have led to this fish being attracted to this specific colour.
One of my arguments in that thing is it's the human's perception of colour.
Doesn't that freak you out?
Yeah, because
that freaks me the fuck out.
Fish don't see fucking whatever colour at what depth. No,
okay, so
the human eye doesn't see the motherfucking colour. Listen, I got on a rant about this before.
Okay.
The human eye doesn't see the motherfucking colour in the water. Do you know what I mean? Like, people are going, red's the first thing to go.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, out of the colour spectrum, I'm pretty sure this is how it works at the depth, whatever, as you just descend into the depths of the ocean.
I guess that's why all of the diving equipment is like yellow. Like
but to the human motherfucking eye.
Yeah.
Red might to the fish be the most vivid thing. It's relatable because a lot of deep water fish are red. Maybe make them camouflage, I don't know. But you can sort of relate to that. But
sure.
There's no not that I know of, definitive proof that that's actually what the fucking fish see. I don't know who's dissected a fish eye. If anyone has any information on who the fuck's dissected a fish eye, can tell me what fish see. It's not the same as humans, man.
And that would be because the rods and the cones in the human eye would be obviously different composition to a fish's eye.
Yeah, but that's the bit that annoys me, that people go,
fish can't see red, and you go, yeah, but maybe
the human eye can't see red at depth, at X depth.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't know the fucking fish can see it.
Well, that's like...
So we base our lure colour on our own perception. Fuck that.
Gosh, there's something about bees and the way that bees can see ultraviolet. Like, a bee will not go to the same flower twice.
Yeah, right.
How does it know that?
I don't know.
There's probably a bunch of documentaries that I've watched.
Let's go GPS. Just put some marks all its flowers it's been doing. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's fucking... But it's those people, right? The point I was trying to make was it's those people that think that little bit further, that go that little bit deeper, that get more out of the thing they're interested in.
Sure.
And they're the people who succeed in fishing, who succeed in coffee, who succeed in business, who succeed in fucking fitness, who succeed in whatever. You know what I mean? It's those people that choose to question everything and gauge a rounded opinion on everything based on left field, right field, straight in front of you, behind you, all of that shit.
Well, that's the thing that is... Okay, so what you're interested in. So I was thinking...
What you're passionate about is probably the best way to put it.
Right.
Interested in is not really... It's like a little bit dabble, but
okay, so when did you work out... So I'm trying to think about when I got passionate about coffee. Initially, I was like, fuck, that's interesting. This first espresso tasted shit and this one didn't.
For me, with fishing, good English, is I've always, for as long as I can remember,
right,
I've fished forever.
Did you have like a mentor?
My dad fished flat out and always was looking further ahead than what everyone else was doing.
Sure.
Always outside the box.
Okay.
Which is where I got it from.
I see.
And my grandfather fished on both sides of my family. Grandfathers fished on both sides of my family, and my friends' families fished as well. And my old man sort of just thought outside the box is the perfect way of putting it. Which obviously,
what example can you give for that? In terms of line choice or
let's say
or shot placement, where do you place?
So back in the day,
please, to all of the listeners that are still listening, forgive my noobness.
No, it's fine, man, because it's super. The people will relate between the two. I guarantee you. But I guarantee you, the people that give a shit will relate.
Sure.
So where I'm from, in southwest Queensland, a lot of the fishing was land-based line fishing with bait.
I see.
I'll try and explain it to
people
like yourself,
because you can not do it that way. You can do it with lures, and you can do it out in the ocean. Yeah.
Then there was the minor people that used in boats, still use bait, and then there was the people when those sections. It's the top of the Murray-Darling system we used to fish, and it's basically big long extensions of river that are basically built along, so to speak. And when it rains and floods, it all meets up and they all make a system. So when they clear up, they go clean, and you can see a few feet into the water. People will troll small metal lures, basically, just little small metal lures, and pick up fish. Historically.
Sure.
And there probably has been the odd people that's cast lures bits and pieces. My old man was like, okay, why can't I troll in dirty water? And I remember going out as a kid, trolling for fish. People go, you can't troll spinners, we used to call them, like tiny little spinners with a little
it's like a flashy little...
Yeah, it's just got imagine like a goldy brass shaft with a treble, like a 3-hook.
Yep.
On the end of it, and a little spoon on the top, and it just spins around the water and makes flash and colour and whatever, vibration. And my old man was like, "Why the fuck?"
Vibration. God damn.
Yeah, that's
another variable.
Yeah.
God damn.
So my old man was like, "Why the fuck doesn't it work in dirty water?" So we did the same thing in dirty water. Caught just as many fish.
See,
it's because people was like, I tell you, you can't catch fish on clean.
So your dad tested tested
He
based
just-
on a datum. He used a baseline piece of information and then tested that hypothesis.
I guess. So it's like someone told him, or everyone's told him, that you can't spin fish at that place. You can't spin fish
In dirty water.
And Dad's like, why
not?
So he went and did it and
And
proved
it
that it was
worked.
bullshit. And it was fucking horse shit.
Right.
So then,
There are so many rules in the coffee industry that are constantly being disproven. But
Yeah.
no, that's
it's very similar. It's a similar thing.
you can fish freshwater and saltwater
Correct.
on a boat or from the land.
Correct.
And you can use bait or not.
Correct.
That's what, like 6 different variations of fishing.
And that's like not even 0.5%.
Oh, it's obviously nothing
No.
because then you talk about a whole bunch of other different things. Like, so
Literally.
when you're talking about vibration, that makes me go, fuck, there is a perception of the world that fish have that we don't really pay attention to the same way.
They got like lateral lines, man. Water, they pressure, temperature, fucking.
Fuck, that's freaky.
Like some fish feel electric current.
Electricity, yeah.
Sharks is a perfect example.
Right. Sure.
Taste. Sharks again. Blood.
Yep.
Heaps of shit. Sunlight. Cloud. Water pressure. Air pressure.
And that's one of the
wind.
things that's kind of weird, right? And that's where humans are separate from the things that we hunt, is that these creatures are so flighty. Like, if you've ever done like a really solid deer hunt or anything like that, fishing or spearfishing. I used to do a bit of spearfishing when I was a kid, and I really love it. I haven't done it for such a long
Love to
time.
go out, man.
I'd love to do that. So these creatures are different from humans because they are always trying to avoid being eaten. We don't get fucking eaten by anything.
Not
unless it's
anymore.
by-
We've gotten
by mistake.
very comfortable.
If you get eaten by a crocodile, you probably deserve to.
You're doing it dumb. Being a dumb
doing
fuck.
something dumb.
But yeah, we've become comfortable in what we are as
And
a
almost
species.
no other species outside of maybe dogs and cats are like that. And so it's
Yeah,
a completely
domestic.
different paradigm for thinking. When you're not constantly worried about whether or not something's going to jump out of a bush or from behind a log or behind that seaweed and
Yeah.
eat your goddamn face.
Yeah, so that's why you've got to get it right. You've got to like.
And I guess that must be the draw for you that you find so exciting, trying to figure that puzzle out. It's like a Rubik's Cube.
It's a never-ending puzzle, though.
Sure.
You can think you've got it nailed, and then the fish will just go and do something weird, and you'll be like, "What the fuck?" and why? And then you
Sure.
try and figure that out, and then it's a never-ending circle. It's a challenge, and I
Sure.
thoroughly enjoy it. And it's not. I like being outdoors. I like being on the water, sunrises, nature, animals. There's so many
How
other
connected
things.
to nature do you feel when you're just out
Fucking
walking?
amazing.
It's
We were
great.
talking about this. I was talking about this with a couple of people yesterday.
Sure.
You go to this, you get to this point, and it's sort of an unexplainable thing. You get to a point, and you're like, "Fuck, I feel this feels fishy." It's like one of them human instincts, because we're animals. Like it's like an animal instinct. And you're like,
Sure.
"Fuck, this feels fishy. I feel like I'm going to get a bite." And I think you subconsciously, like, the conditions look good based on your knowledge, but you also subconsciously feel this thing that you're like, there's this vibe in the air, like it. Yeah, you know when you get like, I don't know, I get it from fighting, like competitive fighting,
Sure.
where you're like, it's got this like electricity in the air. Yeah, you can feel like some shit's going to go down. Yeah, that feeling that you can't quite explain, and you don't know why, but then you go bang and you get a fish.
There's some. So I used to train in Aikido.
Yeah,
Which anybody out there that sort of follows MMA or anything like that will shit all over Aikido. And you know what? They're totally justified.
Yeah.
Like in most martial arts, I think, except for a few, probably don't really. Like a lot of karate stuff would not fly in the cage. A lot of Aikido stuff wouldn't fly in the cage
Probably
either.
not.
But so there are two main styles of Aikido. There is what's called Iwama Ryu, and then there's Aikikai.
Pause it there. I'm just going to go for a piss, man. I'm busting. Holy fuck, man, that needed to happen. I was like feet tapping and shaking and trying to like tense my belly button up to like try and.
Tense your
But then I
button.
had like, I had like pains in my bladder and shit. Had to bail out. Aikido.
Yeah, right. So there's two main schools, Iwama Ryu and Aikikai. Aikikai is the one that people will reference when they talk about Aikido. It's very flowy looking and it looks a lot like
I remember
Tai
you
Chi,
telling me this, yeah.
Right? And then there's Iwama Ryu. And it's a bit more like Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, right.
Like, it'll feel like your shoulder will come out of its socket.
That's good.
Like, yeah, it's good. That's still not a lot that would be applicable in the cage, but it's not as bad as Tai Chi. Anyway, so when I was in Japan, training in Japan, you get up very, very early in the morning and you go to the dojo, you clean it, and then you basically run into the forest in the snow and get ready to start training. And the electricity that you were talking about just then, the presence that you feel for like where you are in the world doesn't get a lot more real than having to be so hyper aware of what the fuck is going on, because if you're not, you're going to get punched in the face,
yeah, man.
or hit in the head with a stick. Like,
yep, that's where people don't understand.
The walking through the bush or out on a boat or diving.
Yeah, well, fighting is very relatable to what you're trying to say, because people go, why do you fight? Or like, what do you do that shit for? And you cannot explain it in a way that you don't sound like
so
a
I
fucking
can
animal.
feel, man.
Like you're trying to explain it in a way you just can't. I can't do it anyway. Explain it in a way that they understand. That doesn't make me sound like a fucking animal. But it's like, oh, it's painful and it's fucking like sadistic, and it's not. It's like, I'm still doing the same thing. Like, it's
Presence that you feel.
Yeah, it's like a fucking experience. Yeah, you're just trying to feel this. Like, there's just this. It's
And
adrenaline.
I can understand why people wouldn't want to do it, because it's very, very confronting. It's very confronting to know that if I don't move, it's going to hurt a lot in a second. Like,
yeah, but it's like everything's heightened. Like,
sure,
everything, like anxiety and stress and like adrenaline and everything.
It's like every fibre of your muscle of your body is just firing.
When you get in a cage, in a ring and shit, or in a street fight, which is next level again.
Sure.
It's out of this. It's unworldly how in touch you are with your body and mind.
Sure.
Is that a way of putting it? Yeah, it's it's fucking crazy, man.
So I guess the next best version of that, or one of the versions, I was cooking on the barbecue the other day, like a fire. I was cooking on fire, and
I know where you're going, and this is fucking legit. Yeah.
There is, and I had my camera there, and I took a bunch of photos of it, and there's something just weirdly primal and elemental about cooking with fire that it's weird. Maybe it's a million years of humanity sort of like echoing through the experience that I'm having.
That's what I reckon it is. It's ancestral and fucking like evolutionary.
It's different to cooking on just like a hot plate in your kitchen.
But have you ever had a rotisserie?
Yeah, of course.
And sat beside it, having beers, talking to people?
Of course.
How much do you stare at the fucking thing while it's spinning around?
Totally.
And I don't think it's because the thing's spinning.
Sure.
It sort of is, but it's sort of like the fire. And like camping and shit, camping
Did a
isn't
lot of that when I
camping
was a
without
kid.
fire. I don't know.
If you ever camp in like those bullshit like caravan parks where you're not allowed to have a fire.
Yeah, and you got to
like,
camp beside people.
What the fuck am I doing here?
People have got
There's a
TVs
toilet
on
block?
and shit.
There's a toilet block?
TVs, man.
What the fuck?
Who puts a cat? Why not just go and stay in motels or something? I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Are you hungry?
Yeah, man. Let's go get some burgers.
It's a fucking great idea. I'm so
Let's do that. Let's round it out. So, if people want to see what you're all about, man, at
Instagram. Ryan Toleman? Fuck, I don't even know what my Instagram
I think
handle
it's
is.
Ryan Toleman, and that's all it is. Toleman.
That's it. Ryan Toleman.
Yeah, coffee guy. And
you should check out freelanceroasting.com.
which is
freelanceroasting.com. You can check us out, see what we're about, and also follow us on Instagram there too.
Yep.
Does anybody use Facebook anymore?
I don't. I hate the fucking thing.
Fuck, it's a cesspool, isn't it?
It's full of poisonous filth, man. It's gross.
Disgusting.
It's good for buy, swap, and sell. That's about it.
Facebook Marketplace gets me every time.
It's like Gumtree, but easier. But you let more fuckheads on there, like tire kicking dogs. Flat out.
Time for some food.
Righto, man. Thanks very much for your time.
Hey, mate, that was awesome.
Appreciate it.